Hollow Knight has sold over 3 million copies and counting, and since its release, its popularity has skyrocketed, reaching a point where it's become the face of indie games.
Oh yes, sir!
But Hollow Knight didn't begin like this. When the developers first created this little bug, people hated him. It took years before the Knight became what it is today, and it only happened because the Hollow Knight devs saw something that others didn't. And it all began when two friends entered the game jam, Ludum Dare. But if there was a game jam for web browsers, operGX would be my game jam. You like what I did there? Anyway, I used to be a Chrome guy, but when I traveled, trying to do work and play games on my laptop was a hassle. And since Chrome eats resources like Pac-Man eats pellets, I couldn't game and keep my Chrome tabs open. So when I heard about operGX's GX control feature, I knew I had to give it a try. The GX control feature lets you limit the amount of CPU or RAM that the browsers will use, so you can keep it from impacting your computer's performance. Now I don't have to close all my beautiful spreadsheets when I want a game. And with all the GX mods, you can really geek out on Hollow Knight. GX mods allow you to customize pretty much everything about your browser, like the keyboard sounds, theme, colors, and so much more. Not to mention, the browser just got an upgrade. With its new generative AI integrations, operGX can now answer questions, generate prompts, or help you find the best Hollow Knight guides. And with the sidebar access to ChatGPT and ChatSonic, you've got lots of options. For gamers, there really is no better browser, with GX Corner being the go-to place for free browser games, gaming news, deals, and more. It's like the old gaming magazines and flash game websites we used to have rolled up into one. And the best part about it all is that you can switch browsers easily with operGX's import tool. So there's never been a better time to switch. Download operGX today using my link below. Thanks to operGX for sponsoring this video and helping us fund indie developers. Let's get back to Hollow Knight and the game jam Ludum Dare. Now, game jams are a staple in the indie dev community, usually focused on creating a game in a short period of time. So for Ludum Dare, Ari Gibson and William Pellin had only 2 days to create their very first game, and they called it Hungry Knight, a top-down experience featuring a knight killing bugs to fight off starvation. The game was terrible. Not only was it plagued with technical issues, it just wasn't fun. Although Hungry Knight would score a 1 out of 5 and receive mostly poor reviews, the dynamic duo caught the indie dev bug and wanted to keep going. So Ari and William quit their jobs and created their very own studio, Team Cherry. Now, they had all sorts of ideas and aspirations for the future, but one thing was for certain: their current game had to change. They found the top-down perspective too limiting, and they wanted a completely fresh slate. These two friends needed a new direction. While hunting for ideas, the team signed up for another game jam, but unfortunately, they missed the sign-up deadline. But it didn't matter, because they got something more valuable: inspiration. The theme of this jam was Beneath the Surface, which resonated with the two as they began to imagine a sprawling world below for their knight to explore. A world with iconic boss battles, amazing soundtracks, and dripping atmosphere. A world like Metroid. Metroid is a series that changed the industry. The first game introduced sprawling labyrinth-like maps and a unique world, giving the player the freedom to explore and upgrades to discover. This game was iconic, and alongside Castlevania, it created an entirely new genre, Metroidvania. Each Metroid entry brought in innovations and new ideas, constantly evolving the genre or trying to be something new. The games were beloved by fans, especially by Ari and William. But something happened. In the late 2000s, Nintendo began paying less and less attention to Samus because the series wasn't a cash cow. Unlike most Nintendo IP, Metroid games were really costly to make and they weren't massively successful. So Nintendo tried something new. They tried a cinematic hack and slash, a co-op handheld game, and even a multiplayer soccer mode, experimenting with all sorts of mainstream genres. It didn't work. People hated the changes, and the game sold terribly. Nintendo had innovated in all the wrong ways.
Metroid Other M is the biggest atrocity to ever grace the Metroid franchise.
Metroid had lost its identity. They forgot that exploration, the atmosphere, and puzzles were why people loved these games. Nintendo had abandoned their core audience, leaving the door wide open for someone else. Someone with a Metroid bug, eager to fill the void. Now, if there was a Metroidvania textbook, Team Cherry had memorized it. Everything in Hollow Knight was coming from these games. Not to mention they drew inspiration from many other NES classics, games like...
The main influences for this one were Zelda 2 and Xanadu, and then Metroid, obviously, like really closely.
These games were the perfect combination for their vision. A dark world with bugs and interwoven tunnels called HALLOWNEST, a new world for Metroid fans. So Ari got to work, drawing every piece of HALLOWNEST by hand, scanning one by one into the game's engine. This effort gave every location a distinct and beautiful style. Team Cherry crafted an intriguing world to explore, dripping with history and atmosphere. But these weren't their only strengths. They wanted a game that didn't just look great, but feel great, that had tight handling of Super Metroid and Mega Man. We wanted players to feel totally in control of their character at all times. So our model for movement was the Mega Man and Mega Man X series. The knight was given expressive movement inspired by these classic games, with a dash, a wall jump, and a double jump. There's even the ability to fly horizontally, like Metroid's Shine Spark. But most importantly, you could cut your momentum at any point, creating a fluid experience where the player is always in control. Team Cherry took the pieces Nintendo left behind, put them back together, and just dialed it up to 11. Team Cherry also went the extra mile and brought in new ideas, like equipable items to customize your experience. Do you swap out some range damage in this boss battle, or maybe you need some more movement? Charms gave the player more choices and more freedom. Hollow Knight took that same Metroid formula and kept pushing it to new heights. Ari and William realized they had something special, but if they wanted to finish Hollow Knight, they needed help. Sadly, they still had a long road ahead of them and no money. So Team Cherry was at a crossroads. Find a publisher or fund it themselves. The two wanted to retain ownership of their game, but the path of self-funding was murky. Luckily, there was hope. At this point in time, many indie games were financed through crowdfunding. Websites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo allowed fans to pledge cash to support development. So in 2014, Team Cherry designed a page and created a pitch, showing the gorgeous map, type movement, and beautiful atmosphere. They aimed to raise only 35,000 Australian dollars, but they flew way past their goal, reaching almost 60,000 from tons of backers. Ari and William couldn't believe the response. It was the first signal that, conceptually at least, that we were onto something cool. So even as an unfinished prototype, players wanted Hollow Knight. This influx of cash allowed Team Cherry to put their vision into action, creating new areas, new boss battles, plus hiring 2 more team members, David Kazi as technical director and Christopher Larkin as the composer. But most importantly, this validated their hypothesis. People wanted a new Metroidvania. Not just the game with Samus, but a deep, challenging map to explore with new ideas. Hollow Knight stood as the answer to that call. But even with all this funding, it was questionable if they'd achieve their vision. Would Hollow Knight become something revolutionary, or just another indie game buried on Steam? After years of blood, sweat, and tears, Hollow Knight finally released on February 24th, 2017. And the reception was unbelievable. Sales began pouring in. Critics and players alike loved the game. Metroidvania fans were finally given the game they'd been praying for. Hollow Knight was massive, innovative, atmospheric, and only $15, the complete package. But most of all, it served a market which was dying for something new. It was the perfect blend of these classic games and new ideas. Metroidvanias were back, and Nintendo didn't want to be left out. Metroid finally returned. This was unbelievable. Out of nowhere, Nintendo not only announced the full remake of Metroid 2, but Metroid Prime 4. People were thrilled. But when Samus released in September, things weren't as fans expected.
In the face of this year's Hollow Knight, which had 150 enemies, 27 of those being unique bosses, the variety of enemies here feels infantile.
The game was good, but it wasn't great. It lacked Metroid's iconic atmosphere. It was repetitive, and the melee mechanics got old fast. Compared to Hollow Knight, Samus felt flat, even a bit uninspired, and the sales show it. Hollow Knight, a new title from a new and inexperienced studio, was outperforming a flagship Nintendo game. This is how Hollow Knight became the face of indie games and sold millions of copies, by claiming a genre and serving it better than anyone else. It wasn't just good, it was perfect. Hollow Knight's success teaches an important lesson. Just because a genre has been left dormant doesn't mean there isn't an audience hungry for more. With total sales surpassing any other Metroid game, Hollow Knight shows us what's possible when you move a beloved genre forward with fresh ideas. Thanks everyone for watching. Real quick, I want to let everyone know we will be doing our own game jam really soon. We will announce the exact dates and a prize pool in our Discord. That being said, the Going Indie community is growing, and we hope with the funds we raise from sponsors like the operGX sponsor in this video, we can do more funded events and help more developers get their projects off the ground. Thanks to everyone who has been supporting us, and we're excited to be able to help developers kick off their indie journey. See you next week.